2019 interns, and welcome to our presentation, Life of a Song, Every Breath You Take. I'm Caitlin, this is Isabel, Shane, Lily, Mia, Pablo, Anna, Caitlin, Natalie, Gordon, and Austin. Before we begin, we wanted to take it to the streets and see what people had to say about Sting and his song, Every Breath You Take. Enjoy.
I'm Caitlin Dorff, and this is BMI on the street. Who is Sting?
Aren't they, isn't he a lead singer of a band?
Yes, what band?
I don't know.
No. Do you guys know who's singing?
Singer, yeah.
Do you know one of his songs? Since you know him so well. No.
Really good.
I have no idea. Gordon Sumner. I have no idea.
Sting, the wrestler, he's a singer.
And
Please.
perfect, thank you. Can you sing the song Every Breath You Take?
Every breath you take, and every move you make, every vow you break, every song you fake, I'll be watching you.
Every
Move you make, every step you take, I'll be watching you.
Every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you.
Every breath you take, every song you make, I'll be watching you. Thank you!
So as you just saw in the previous video, Sting and his song Every Breath You Take has clearly had a major influence on the general population. Therefore, we took it upon ourselves to dive more into detail about who Sting is and how important he is to the BMI family. And now we are going to give you a little overview on what the creative department does. One of the things that we do is we do career development, which is where we assess where songwriters are in their careers and from there help them create opportunities as needed, whether it's helping them form a team, find an attorney, a manager, a publisher, or even a label. We can help them with that. In addition, we also do A&R, which is where we find new talent by attending shows, researching charts and trends, and creating new industry relationships.
Along with these, we have collaboration, where we set up co-writes and collaborations for writers, we pitch songs to other artists and labels, and we pitch songs for films, television, and ads. Education. We have guest speakers that go around to schools like NYU, Berkeley, USC, and Belmont. We speak on panels and for conferences, and we explain what BMI's role in the music industry is, what performing rights are, how BMI relates to music publishers, and BMI's role in the music industry at large.
Creative also handles some administration, which encompasses affiliating new songwriters and publishers, as well as registering their works, helping them set up direct deposit and make any adjustments and work updates that are needed. Lastly, Creative also works to help coordinate events, including stages at festivals, writing camps, showcases, songwriting network events, award shows, and workshops.
So before we delve into the specifics of Every Breath You Take, we wanted to give you a little general overview of who Sting and the Police actually are. So the Police was formed in 1977 by Gordon Sumner, Andy Summers, and Stuart Copeland. And as their early releases didn't really gain much traction, they decided to fly to America to do some venue shows. And when they flew back to the UK, they actually found out that Roxanne was charting in the UK, and so they released their first project, Outlandos Don't More. Outlandos Don't More featured 3 hit songs, including Roxanne, Can't Stand Losing You, and So Lonely. But then things really picked up when they dropped their second project, Regatta de Blanc. Regatta de Blanc was the first of 4 consecutive projects to go #1 in both the UK and Australia. However, their last studio album, Synchronicity, which is the album that featured Every Breath You Take, went #1 in both the UK and the US, selling 8 million copies in the US alone. However, they disbanded in 1986 and Sting went on to pursue a solo career. After starting his solo career, Sting signed to BMI on July 16, 1997. However, his arrangement was quite unique compared to most artists because he was already a celebrated songwriter and a global sensation, so he did not need our help in securing placements or promoting his music. What he wanted us to do with him was to do business, and by business I mean manage his catalog. He was signed to PRS, which is the PRO in the UK, and so he had to sign a deal with us called a foreign direct pay agreement, aka a Q account. And what this means is that instead of us distributing his royalties to PRS to distribute to him, we would distribute our royalties directly to him, and that would cancel out the double overhead that would have ensued.
Being of the utmost importance to us at BMI, Sting has been dedicated to something called a red file. That means that if he ever needs anything from us, there's an executive level person to address his needs directly. We were lucky enough to get to talk to Phil Graham, who was responsible for Sting's red file until he retired. Mr. Graham explained to us that around 1995, BMI had the opportunity to acquire all of Sting's work, and were able to do this because they had the right relationships with the right people. Mr. Graham also explained that unlike most songwriters, Sting was very PRO aware, which meant he understood how BMI could help him in the future. Also, he told us a cool story about how when Sting won the Million Performance Award for the song Every Breath You Take, he got to take a picture with Sting and his dog at Sting's house.
So does anyone here have any idea what the meaning of the song might be? Anyone? Guess? Yes.
It's not fair because I know.
So maybe I'm more ossified than Neil. Well, okay. So, Sting was married to Frances, and Frances happened to be best friends with Trudy, pictured on the right. Sting fell in love with his ex-wife's best friend, and then escaped to Jamaica, where he could write the song Every Breath You Take. And so when he went to Jamaica to write this song, he was basically mocking his ex-wife because she had been stalking him. So the words, every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you, was a mock of his ex-wife, Frances. Stalking her. Over the years, Sting has been awarded for his many contributions to the music world. His most impressive statistic is the fact that he's been nominated for 40 Grammy Awards, taking home 18 of them. Relating to Every Breath You Take, he took home the awards Song of the Year and Best Pop Performance by a duo or group with vocals in 1984. In addition, he was awarded the BMI Humanitarian Award in 1997 for his efforts to save the Amazonian rainforest from deforestation. However, his greatest milestone came years later. In 2002, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and in 2015 was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. The following year, he was awarded the highly prestigious Icon Award at the BMI Pop Awards, and his latest milestone was celebrated at the most recent BMI Pop Awards when his song Every Breath You Take passed You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' as the most performed song in BMI's catalog, expanding 14 million views. In addition to these awards, Sting has also won an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and has been nominated for 4 Oscars.
So in total, Sting's song has been performed over 15.1 million times, and that is how it became the most performed song in BMI's catalog. Every Breath You Take has also been sampled in many songs, including P. Diddy's 1997 hit, I'll Be Missing You, and even inspired Maroon 5's single, Won't Go Home Without You. That distribution will go in more depth about sampling it.
So as earlier mentioned from the creative team, it's clear that Sting has had quite a successful career and continues to top charts till this day. Specifically with our department, we directly impact Sting because we are the team that pays him. Distribution is one of the largest puzzle pieces within different departments here at BMI. Starting with the creative team who signs the artists, our department then works closely to ensure BMI members get paid with the fees that are obtained by the licensing department. Our department makes certain that songwriters, composers, and publishers get the credit that they deserve along with the money that is distributed over the years. The process for our department begins with work that is registered through BMI, either through a work registration form or a cue sheet. While our department is known for distributing royalties, we also educate members and do investigative work, contacting individuals who may not know how to register a song or don't know how to properly divide a song so that everyone is getting the credit that they deserve. With each song, BMI distributes payments to songwriters, composers, and publishers as a single unit equal to 100%. Taking a closer look at Sting's song, Every Breath You Take, the percentage of ownership was divided equally between Sting and his publisher company, BMI Blackwood Music, Inc. Therefore, every time the song is brought to a new light, or in other words, reinvented, both Sting and his publisher get paid, which sounds like a pretty good gig to me. Every time a song is played or reinvented, royalties are paid to the copyright music. BMI collects licenses. Distribution then uses those fees to pay royalties to our affiliates. We make royalty distributions quarterly from January, March, June, and September. As seen in the chart, Sting earns most of his royalties from the radio, digital, various sources, and so on. Since Sting has been a BMI member, he has earned, to date, a total of over $19 million in royalties, which does not include what he has earned with PRS. Sting has a millions performance titles, which is why his royalties are the way they are. According to our records, it shows that the total of US radio plays is almost 15 million. This also means a song is qualified for a hit song bonus and the standards bonus. In order to be qualified for the hit song bonus, the work has to be performed more than 95,000 times during the quarter. In order to be qualified for the standards bonus, the work has to be performed on the radio at least 2.5 million times since released. Both of these bonuses allow Sting to earn larger royalties than those of other works that didn't really make the cut. Sting easily swipes the charts, making him a candidate for receiving both of these bonuses.
So in this chart here, we're looking at songs from Sting's catalog and what percentage, what they're worth in terms of percentages of his earnings over the last 4 quarters. As you can see, Every Breath You Take is responsible for about 23% of those earnings. And that's second to only Lucid Dreams, a song by Juice WRLD. And that's included in his catalog because it features a sample from another one of Sting's works called Shaping My Heart. And it's pretty important understanding why Every Breath You Take earns a pretty significant amount more on a quarterly basis than other hit songs like Roxanne or Message in a Bottle. Puff Daddy is probably the most notable, but one of many participants who have sampled Sting's Every Breath You Take. This is just a quick little preview.
I can see it. Can't imagine all the pain I feel. Give anything to hear half the breath. I know you're still living your life after death.
As Natalie mentioned, anytime someone comes along and reinvents the song, Sting and his publisher get a cut of it. But Puff Daddy's situation was pretty unique because Puff Daddy did not go to Sting, the copyright owner of Every Breath You Take, and get permission to use it in I'll Be Missing You. So as a result, Sting actually earns 100% of the writer's share of I'll Be Missing You. And that's where the Q account comes in. Sting's earning all these royalties on his original version of Every Breath You Take and on versions like Puff Daddy's. And this is where PRS, Sting, and BMI came to the agreement that BMI would be responsible for Sting's royalties earned in the United States, and PRS would be responsible for royalties earned elsewhere. And it's advantageous for both BMI and Sting. Sting gets to remain a PRS writer, but as Shane mentioned earlier, the royalty collection process becomes much more efficient. The money's in less hands, it just goes straight from BMI to Sting. And then from BMI's standpoint, we get to add Sting to an already long list of affiliates along with his catalog. And we can use him for a variety of things like a marketing advantage to further grow our brand and track new affiliates. And but as ideal as the Q account seems, it does require a lot of work from BMI's standpoint with PROs across the globe. And Austin and Lily will talk a little bit more about those international relationships.
Okay, so in the international department, we're responsible for overseeing our affiliates in over 200 companies, and the international department's revenue makes up almost 1/3 of BMI's total revenue. And we work with over 90 plus sister societies across the globe to ensure that our artists are paid for when their songs are played, performed live in a show and a film across the globe. And we do this through something called the reciprocal agreement, which allows the foreign societies the right to license our works and vice versa. Then we don't only represent our artists outside the globe, we also sometimes will represent the foreign artists in America. And we do this through 2 ways. One is through a designation, which is when a foreign society will give their affiliates an option to choose between BMI or ASCAP for when their songs are played in America. And then the other way is through a Q count, which is when we will uniquely feel passionate about a certain artist and reach out directly to them, and we will pay the artist directly. And Sting set up his Q account with BMI in 1997, meaning we pay him directly when all his songs are performed in America. And as you can see on this chart, the light blue on the top right is PRS, and they make up 17% of our international revenue. And we could also predict that if Sting did not sign the Q account with us, he would probably be one of PRS's top earners. Then being part of the international department means that we don't oversee our affiliates just in America. We also watch out to see what happens all over the globe. and Every Breath You Take was written in St. Anne, Jamaica in 1983, and the entire song was inspired by his time in Jamaica. And then years later in 2018, he revisited Jamaica to revisit his reggae influences and teamed up with BMI affiliate Shaggy to create the album 44876.
So another example of Sting's reach across the globe is through his Live Aid performance in 1985. Live Aid was a dual venue benefit concert hosted in both London and Philadelphia. Its goal was to raise money and awareness for the Ethiopian famine disaster. So in 1985, Sting performed Every Breath You Take with Phil Collins at Live Aid in London. It was viewed by 40% of the global population and raised $127 million for famine relief. So taking a look at global charts, on May 29th of 1983, Every Breath You Take appeared on UK charts, just 9 days after it was released. And then on June 12th of that year, the music video was released and broadcast on MTV. This was huge for artists like The Police because MTV was a new concept cable station that launched in 1981 and played music videos all day. So when MTV launched, only about 20% of Americans watched cable, but in 1985, this percentage doubled because the general public loved how music videos were available to watch at any moment. So shortly after the release of the music video, Every Breath You Take appeared on other charts, most popular in South Africa and the United States. So compared to just before the music video was released, it was just on UK charts, and once it was broadcast on MTV, it made it on charts worldwide. So this proves that MTV was a crucial component for how music gained popularity internationally. So within the international department, we compile country reports where we focus on current events that could shape both our communication and relationship with foreign societies. I have been working on country reports for Canada, the UK, and more throughout the summer, which include an overview of the country, their society, and their financial incoming and outgoing revenue. Being aware of international politics is crucial because although we try not to weigh in, we offer support in troubling times. So for example, when Notre Dame was on fire, we reached out to SACEM in France. It is important for us to know what pressures our colleagues are dealing with aside from business pressures, and with that in mind, we decided to take a look on how political events could shape the song Every Breath You Take. Every Breath You Take made it to Slovenian charts in April 2013. During the spring of 2013, their government started implementing high-tech radar and cameras on traffic lights, which angered Slovenians and led them to protest. Every Breath You Take's underlying message is about being watched, and although we cannot determine causation, it is interesting to note that the song became popular during this time. The song made it to the charts in Poland on November 11th, 2015. This day marks Polish Independence Day and a day where Polish people protested against the refugees that the Polish government was accepting from Syria. Perhaps the song's message about surveillance correlates with keeping an eye on Poland's refugee policies. So to wrap up the international department, we make sure to provide revenue for our songwriters internationally, and the licensing department makes sure to do this domestically, which they will talk about now.
BMI is dedicated to our songwriters. We want to ensure that they are being properly compensated and getting the revenue that they deserve when their music is played on various platforms. We also want to ensure that we are conducting research and outreach to potential licensees. We want other businesses to really understand why they need licenses, and they also can reach out to us if they believe that they could have a potential license with us as well.
Right, and as we all know, music is proven to be an integral part of a business, whether it be a jazz bar, a retail chain, or a fitness app. The licensing team makes sure that BMI songwriters are being compensated for the use of their compositions. Furthermore, since the rise of the digital space, the licensing team is responsible for staying ahead of the new entrants that might use music in their services. So the licensing department is essentially split up into 3 departments. Traditional media, which general licensing, which includes establishments like gyms, bars, restaurants, etc. These licensing fees are usually structured on the size of the capacity and paid upfront. Traditional media, which includes radio, TV, cable, satellite, and digital media, which includes music services like Spotify, audiovisual like YouTube and Netflix, and many more emerging technologies like fitness apps and whatnot. Traditional media and digital media licensing fees are structured on a percentage of revenue.
Pre-1980, the various platforms that we focused on with general and media licensing were standard radio, broadcast, and cable TV. Then in 1981, MTV was founded. This birthed the explosion of music videos not just nationwide, but also globally. In 1983, Every Breath You Take was released along with the music video. Now today, even today, it is now the 16th most popular song from MTV music videos. In 1984, CDs and Sony Discman were released. This really increased the accessibility of how everybody listens to music. In 1997, Sting is signed to BMI. Around this time also, we had our first new media license in 1994, as you see the transition from general media licensing to digital licensing. In 2001, satellite radio broadcast started in the US, as well as the iPod was released. Around this time, the iTunes Store had also launched. This is when we really started getting into digital licensing with promo clips. The 30-second music clips that were on iTunes Store before you downloaded your digital stream, your digital song, was really the initial start of promo clips and digital licensing. In 2005, YouTube was launched. Now this is when we had user-generated media and people were creating their own samples of songs. This really started the streaming process. Then in 2007, Netflix is launched. This is really the foundation of streaming services and how we license with audio-visual licensing. Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu are all licensed through this and other streaming platforms. Then in 2011, Spotify is launched. Spotify, along with Pandora and Apple Music and the thousands of other music streaming services, really revolutionized how we all listen to music, and it's now accessible at all of our fingertips. We license these through music service licenses. Then in 2018, Every Breath You Take becomes BMI's most performed song. It is through a culmination of all of these platforms that Every Breath You Take was able to reach this great milestone.
So at the time of Every Breath You Take's release in 1983, Sting was mainly receiving performance royalties through radio, TV, cable, and general licensing. In addition to today, Every Breath You Take is receiving performance royalties in the digital space, which again includes services like Spotify, like YouTube, and Netflix, and was even featured in the popular Netflix show Stranger Things.
Now today we have a multitude of covers and samples that have been done, including some that have amassed more than 30 million plays. This really demonstrates how important it is that we are providing the revenue to our songwriters and that they are protected, because a lot of these artists are also receiving compensation for all of their streams. We want to ensure that the original songwriter is also properly compensated.
And the most notable of these derivative works or covers is a Puff Daddy sample, Puff Daddy song, I'll Be Missing You, which sampled the song. It's important to note that Sting's receiving all of the performance royalties from these songs. Legal will now touch more about copyright.
Alright, so one word that we often hear about throughout most of our departments, and especially legal, is copyright. But what exactly does copyright mean? Where do our copyright laws even come from? And why do we need copyright protection? Copyright refers to the rights that belong exclusively to the authors or authors that create original and creative works of art. An easier way to think of copyright is a bundle of underlying rights, or a bundle of sticks, where each stick represents a unique right that lets the author, or anyone the author allows, to use their work in a certain way. 5 of these unique rights are listed on the slide here. And BMI, as you may already know, is a performing rights organization. So what we care about is the right to publicly perform. This is why we grant public performance licenses and collect royalties earned whenever an affiliate song is performed publicly at a restaurant or a bar, for example. Next, copyright stems from our Constitution, and our laws are codified in something that Congress created called the Copyright Act. We need copyright protection because we want to encourage everyone to keep making creative works of art for everyone to enjoy. We also want to reward these authors with the compensation and the credits that they deserve. And finally, respect the fact that authors own the works that they create, so they should be able to stop anyone from copying or using their works without their permission. So speaking of ownership, it's important to define who the authors are at the very beginning of the creative process. So let's say you've created your creative work, you automatically become the author and you retain all copyrights to your work. Meaning now you can sell or transfer your copyright to someone, or you can license your work, meaning you still retain the copyright to your work, but the licensee can only use your work in a certain way and usually for an agreed upon fee. So pretty straightforward when you're the only author involved. But when two or more authors are involved, things get a little bit tricky. In which case they become joint authors. So you can't just call yourself a joint author though. The key to determining who becomes joint authors is that everyone involved must intend for their works to be jointly created and for everyone to be joint authors. So the best way to ensure this is to have a written agreement memorializing everyone's intent to be joint authors. And as a co-author, you own the entire copyright to your work, and you're free to use or license your work to anyone so long as you share in profits with your other co-authors. So the reason why I'm explaining ownership is because it's actually a very important issue in music, since songwriting is a very collaborative process. For example, PJ Khaled has an entire album of collaborations. So defining who the co-authors are at the very beginning is crucial because we want to credit everyone involved and make sure that they receive a piece of the pie. Otherwise, someone who's made a significant contribution but remains uncredited won't be compensated or recognized for their contributions, and we don't want that. And it also goes against the very purpose of copyright. So in reality, disputes over copyright ownership are quite common, and it was one of the issues that arose in the creation of Every Breath You Take between Sting and band member Andy Summers. So Andy Summers was the guitarist for the Police, and he played the main guitar riff featuring the song's 8-bar introduction. In addition to actually performing the guitar riff, he also believes that he contributed to the composition of it. In his memoir that he recently wrote, he details how he created the guitar riff, as you can see on the slide. Unfortunately, Sting had a different account of what happened. So Andy Summers remains uncredited and as a co-author, and the song's copyright registration reflects Sting as the sole owner, meaning he's the only person who's getting all the profits from the song. What happened between Andy Summers and Sting shows why it's important for everyone involved to agree on their intents to become joint authors. It's not enough that we all acknowledge everyone's presence in the room and now we're joint authors. Rather, everyone involved has to have down in writing who the co-authors are, how revenues will be split, and how credits will also be split as well. You snooze, you lose. So ultimately, ownership is one important way for artists to maintain the integrity of their work and ensure that their legacy lives on. So now we'll hear more about Sting's legacy from corporate communications.
So as Anna mentioned, the final piece of this puzzle is corporate communications and marketing, which I have been able to intern for this summer. The overall goal of our department is to ensure that BMI is being portrayed positively to the public. We also support the other departments in sharing the BMI story. Within corporate communications, there are a few different areas. These include media relations, editorial, social media, online communications, archives, and our design group, which includes advertising and graphic design. BMI, our department is also in charge of BMI's recent rebranding campaign, Music Moves Our World, BMI's e-newsletter, The Weekly, the content for our online publication, Music World, as well as the creation of a fun social media series, BMI's Emoji That Track. One job of the media relations team is to create press releases that involve big announcements that involve BMI. Once created, we then send these press releases out to journalists and various media personnel to gain media coverage of these announcements. The following press release was created by the media relations team back in 1984 to celebrate BMI's 32nd annual dinner, which honored songwriters and publishers like Sting, who won a Citation of Achievement for Every Breath You Take. And and this following press release is from 1985. The song Every Breath You Take was honored at BMI's Millionaires Luncheon for receiving 1 million broadcast performances in the US as of December 31st, 1984. Due to the shift from print to digital, BMI's press releases are now digital forms that are featured on BMI's website as well as sent off to journalists. For the 2019 BMI Pop Awards, the media relations team created both a pre and post press release, as well as an electronic press kit which featured courtesy videos and photos to send to journalists. Some of the press outlets receiving these press releases were people from Variety, Billboard, and People. To the right here is the post release for the 2019 BMI Pop Awards, which highlights Sting and the song Every Breath You Take for being the most performed song in BMI's repertoire, as well as other facts and figures to help readers understand why this is such an important accomplishment for both BMI and Sting. So with over 138,000 followers on Instagram alone, social media is one of the easiest ways to promote BMI as a company and showcase our affiliates and their music. At the 2019 BMI Pop Awards, BMI's senior social media manager captured on-ground social content, interacted with affiliates on the red carpet by taking boomerangs, photos, asking questions, and playing Emoji That Track with many affiliates, including Sting and his wife, Trudy. BMI's video series, Emoji That Track, is a short game in which artist song titles are translated into emojis, and they try to guess what song title the emojis represent. Currently, the series has over 31,000 views, and here is Sting and Trudy's episode that was published on BMI's social channels a few weeks ago.
I love quizzes. You have a lady in a red dress.
Roxanne.
Absolutely. Second one.
Okay, on the main. You're good at this, aren't you? I would never get that. Okay.
Last one.
Right, baby.
So nope, and it's inside of a message in a box. Absolutely. You're good.
Brilliant.
You're good.
Give me another one. Let me get
one.
one.
Oh, shut up.
It's Desert Rose.
Final answer. Got it.
Finally got one. And this is
I mean, who's so excited?
So for the first time in 7 years, our department created a new brand campaign, Music Moves Our World, which was spearheaded by the Senior VP of Corporate Communications and Marketing. This campaign speaks not only to who BMI is, but also what the company stands for. Music Moves Our World features around 38 well-known songwriters to celebrate how their music moves our world. Launching the campaign has increased awareness of BMI as a company, creating an even more positive reputation of BMI. Sting was one of the first artists to join the campaign in the second launch back in May. To close off the Corporate Communications and Marketing Department, there are about 650,000 archive photos in our Digital Photo Archives collection. Here are a few photos of Sting throughout the years, showcasing just some of his major career accomplishments. So while all of the departments within BMI have their own set of jobs, the one thing we have learned as interns this summer is that BMI is a family that comes together with a goal in mind of advocating for the value of music. On behalf of the 2019 BMI summer interns, I would like to thank everyone for not only coming out today to see our presentation, but also for supporting us and welcoming us to the BMI family this summer. We are so thankful for this opportunity and are forever grateful for this experience.